The council chamber smelled of antiseptic and defeat. Under the pale glow of the overhead plasma lamps, the air felt heavy with the weight of decisions no one wanted to make. Generals shifted uncomfortably in their carbon fiber uniforms, their metals glinting like discarded star fragments. Even the president's AI assistant flickered in its holographic form, eyes darting nervously from one face to another, as if the room itself were a beast it couldn't tame. The doors hissed open. She entered. Tall, silver-skinned, her hair a cascade of cobalt filaments that shimmered like the night sky over Proxima Prime. She carried the scent of ozone and cosmic dust, her presence slicing through the room like a plasma blade. Silence rippled across the chamber. Even the air held its breath. She regarded them with a gaze that seemed to weigh every atom in their bodies, and perhaps a few extra. The Supreme Commander cleared his throat, his voice a carefully engineered blend of authority and desperation. "You've triumphed in battle," he began, his tongue tripping over the words like a faulty gravity generator. "What is it you demand in return for sparing us?" She studied him with those nebulae eyes, head tilted, as if considering whether to vaporize him on the spot or invite him to tea. A grin, unexpected, mischievous, spread across her face, revealing teeth sharp enough to carve moons. "A human," she declared. The word echoed through the chamber like a faulty hyperdrive. "Just one." The generals exchanged panicked glances. Murmurs spread like space fungus in the stale air. A human? For what? Some thought she meant to dissect him. Others feared she'd eat him with a side of quantum fries. But in the back row, a junior officer, his helmet too large for his head, leaned over to his neighbor and whispered, "Maybe she just wants someone to clean her starship toilets." The neighbor snorted, drawing a glare from the AI assistant. She watched them all, her grin growing wider. "A human," she repeated, savoring the chaos she'd caused. "A single human. That is my price." The president's AI flickered, algorithms working overtime to process the demand. "For scientific purposes?" it ventured. "Or perhaps revenge?" It tried to smile, but its face glitched, and its left eye began blinking in Morse code that no one present could decipher. Her laughter, like solar wind against a force field, filled the chamber. "Scientific purposes," she mused, her tone dancing on the edge of sarcasm. "Revenge? Perhaps." She let the words hang, a puzzle box waiting to be opened. "Choose wisely. I have a schedule to keep, and a black hole to catch before it collapses in on itself." The Supreme Commander tried to stand taller, but his knees creaked like an old cargo ship. We shall grant your request," he stammered, sweat beading on his forehead like condensation on a starport window. "Please take the best of us," another general cut in, too eagerly, "or at least the one with the least paperwork." She threw back her head and laughed, a sound like meteors skipping across a moonlit lake. "I'll take whichever one makes the best jokes," she said, eyes glinting with amusement. "I've grown tired of solemn faces. Give me a human who can make me laugh." The room erupted in a scramble of files and data pads as officers searched for a volunteer with a documented sense of humor. Even the president's AI assistant glitched again, its face morphing into a smiley face before resetting to its default scowl. She watched the chaos unfold with a bemused expression, as if humanity's greatest minds had just proven themselves the galaxy's most entertaining comedy troupe. "Time's ticking," she said, her grin sharp as a photon blade. "I'll be in my ship's lounge. Bring me my prize." With a swirl of cobalt filaments, she turned and vanished through the doors, leaving only the faint scent of ozone and a room full of nervous laughter. Corporal Dean Richards had always suspected his sense of humor would get him into trouble. But even he hadn't expected to be handed over to a cosmic warrior like a prize-winning gourd at a farmer's market. As the guards marched him down the hallway, their boots clanking like a malfunctioning robot, Dean couldn't help but chuckle. "Hey, fellas," he said, leaning just a bit too far into his irreverent charm. "Any chance this is just an elaborate dating show? I've always wanted to win an all-expenses-paid trip to deep space." The guards didn't even crack a smile. Their visors glowed with the dull, unwavering red of standard-issue security bots. Dean sighed, muttering, "Tough crowd," as they approached the door marked with alien glyphs that seemed to dance like holographic spaghetti. A hush fell over the hallway, the kind of silence that only happens when someone's about to make the worst mistake of their life, or the best joke they've ever told. The door hissed open. Dean tried not to flinch, but a tiny squeak escaped his lips anyway. He'd deny it later. Inside, the room pulsed with an eerie light. The walls shimmered with organic circuitry that seemed to breathe, and faint echoes of laughter, not his own, tickled the edges of his mind. She sat cross-legged on a platform that floated above the floor, her cobalt filaments cascading around her like a living nebula. Her eyes were closed, and her lips curved into a grin that promised either enlightenment or dismemberment. Dean couldn't decide which. "You're late," she said, eyes snapping open. "I was beginning to think you'd chickened out." She gestured to a small table between them, on which sat two glasses of something that looked suspiciously like liquid stardust. Dean scratched the back of his head. "Sorry, traffic was a nightmare. You know how it is. Hyperlanes backed up. Wormholes with bad signage." She threw back her head and laughed, the sound like a meteor shower dancing through a synthwave concert. "Humor," she said, wiping a tear from her eye. At least he assumed that was her eye. "A weapon I never mastered. My people see laughter as a sign of weakness. They've always chosen war over wit." Dean leaned forward, elbows on the table. "Well, you know what they say. Laughter is the best medicine. Unless you're a doctor. Then it's probably antibiotics." He gave her a wink that usually worked on bartenders and exhausted shuttle pilots. She tilted her head, intrigued. "Tell me about your Earth jokes," she said. "I want to understand how humor disarms your species." Her voice carried the weight of centuries, like a star asking for directions. Dean launched into a routine that had once bombed at an interstellar bar, complete with bad impressions of politicians, sound effects that belonged in a B-movie, and a dance move he called the quantum shuffle. To his surprise, she didn't incinerate him on the spot. Instead, she watched with rapt fascination, her laughter building like a star about to go supernova. When he finally ran out of material and breath, she leaned back, her expression softening. "Fascinating," she murmured. "Your people use laughter to build bridges, to lower shields. Even in the face of war, you can't resist making jokes." Her eyes sparkled with something that might have been wonder, or perhaps she was just amused by his terrible dance moves. Dean grinned, a little too proudly. "Well, what can I say? It's a talent, or a curse, depending on who you ask." He paused, then added with a crooked smile. "So what exactly do you want with me? Planning on making me your personal court jester?" She considered this for a moment, then let out a laugh that seemed to echo from every wall. "Something like that," she said. "But more than that, I want to know how laughter can change a war, and maybe change a galaxy." Dean's stomach rumbled like a faulty warp engine, and he tried to ignore it by focusing on her eyes. Two cosmic mysteries swirling with too many questions and not nearly enough answers. She'd led him deeper into the ship, past corridors that curved like a Mobius strip, past doors that hissed open to reveal rooms where gravity played its own peculiar game of hopscotch. "You humans eat, yes?" she asked, gesturing to a table that seemed to hover just above the floor, loaded with an array of substances that might have been food or might have been fuel for an antimatter reactor. Dean eyed the spread cautiously, recognizing absolutely nothing. "Yeah, we eat," he said, voice dripping with sarcasm that usually earned him at least a few laughs at the barracks. "Though I usually prefer my meals not to glow in the dark." He poked at something that pulsed softly, like it was thinking about biting him back. She laughed, a sound that seemed to harmonize with the ship itself, vibrations humming through the walls like a celestial bass line. "It's a delicacy where I come from," she explained, though her tone was light enough to make him wonder if she was messing with him. "Don't worry, it's only toxic to certain species of bureaucrats." Dean grinned. "Perfect. I've been wanting to get rid of a few of those for years." He risked a small bite of the shimmering purple blob and was immediately hit with a taste somewhere between cinnamon and the ozone smell of a lightning storm. He said, forcing a grin that felt about as natural as a black hole's vacation photo. "Spicy." She clapped her hands, delighted. "Your face is turning an interesting shade of green. Is that normal?" Totally normal, Dean wheezed, reaching for something that might have been water or antifreeze, it was hard to tell. He took a cautious sip and was relieved when his tongue didn't immediately disintegrate. So, he croaked, wiping tears from his eyes, about this laughter thing. You said your people don't, you know, laugh. She leaned back, crossing one leg over the other with the practiced grace of someone who'd probably mastered 10 forms of martial arts before breakfast. Not like you do, she said. Our culture prizes efficiency, strength, and stoic resolve. Humor is considered disruptive. She let the word hang in the air like a neon sign in the dark. But I saw the way you fought, even under fire. You cracked jokes. You made others laugh. It was unsettling and powerful. Dean's eyebrows shot up. You think my stand-up routine helped win the battle? That's a first. She shrugged, a graceful motion that rippled the cobalt filaments of her hair. Your people's capacity for laughter confuses and fascinates me. It breaks patterns, makes enemies pause. A single moment of laughter can change the course of a conflict. Her gaze settled on him, intense enough to make him wish he'd worn his better socks. That's why I asked for you. Dean blinked, processing that. You want me to teach you how to laugh? He looked around, half expecting a hidden camera or a confetti cannon. She smiled, small but genuine. Yes, I want to understand. I want to learn. And maybe, just maybe, find a way to bring that strength back to my people. She paused, then added with a sly grin. Plus, it's been centuries since I've had a decent stand-up show. Dean exhaled, his shoulders relaxing. Well, he said, adopting his best mock heroic tone, I guess that makes me humanity's official court jester to the galaxy. Hope the pay's good. She laughed again, a sound that sparkled like a dying star reborn. I'll double it if you survive the next meal. He took another cautious bite of the glowing purple goo and grinned. Deal. Days, if you could call them that in a ship that bent time like a cheap joke, slid by in a rhythm Dean tried to understand. He marked them by the steady glow of the central reactor core, which pulsed like a neon heart with a mild case of arrhythmia. Each cycle, she called him back to the floating chamber where laughter and confusion danced hand in hand. Today, she announced, her voice carrying that mischievous tone that made him suspect he'd been drafted into the universe's strangest talent show, we will explore irony. Dean leaned against a chair that hovered 2 inches off the deck, its base flickering every so often, as if it couldn't decide if it wanted to exist. Irony? Like, hey, let's send the galaxy's deadliest warrior to Earth, and she ends up hosting a comedy workshop with a second-rate stand-up artist? He grinned, fingers drumming an offbeat rhythm on his knee. She tilted her head, eyes glowing with amusement, or possibly cosmic radiation. Close, she said, but it's deeper than that. Show me, he sighed theatrically. Okay, so imagine this. Humanity builds a gigantic weapon, like bigger than a planet, to defend themselves from the galaxy's worst threat. But when they finally fire it, it's a confetti cannon. He paused for effect. A very expensive confetti cannon. She laughed, the sound warping the air around them like a distortion field. That's unexpected, she said between giggles. A weapon that fails by succeeding. He leaned forward, emboldened. Exactly. Irony's all about saying one thing and meaning another, like an interstellar pizza delivery arriving 3 weeks late, but with the best toppings you've ever had. She raised an eyebrow, the filaments of her hair shifting like solar flares. Your people weaponize words as cleverly as they do plasma cannons, she said. Your humor slices deeper than any blade. Dean puffed out his chest. What can I say? We're a complicated species. He waggled a finger. But you can't just drop irony on a crowd and expect them to get it. It's an art, a craft. She leaned back in her seat, her expression thoughtful. And yet your people use it so carelessly, even in battle. Hey, Dean shot back. Some of the best one-liners happen under fire. Keeps the panic from setting in. She regarded him, eyes narrowed in a way that usually meant something important was coming. When I fought your armies, she said slowly, I heard your soldiers laughing. Even as they faced certain defeat, even as their cities burned. He shifted, uncomfortable. Yeah, well, gallows humor, right? We'd rather laugh at the executioner than let him see us sweat. She was silent for a moment, her gaze 1,000 light years deep. That laughter, it was like a weapon I couldn't disarm, she admitted. Every time I thought I'd won, someone would laugh and remind me that victory wasn't enough. Dean's breath caught in his throat. Laughter's defiance, he said softly. It's the universe's way of flipping the bird at the darkness. She smiled, small and warm, a sunrise on a world that had never known daybreak. Teach me that, she said. Teach me how to flip the bird at the darkness. Dean's grin returned, broad and irreverent. Deal, he said, offering a mock salute. But first, let's work on your delivery. No offense, but your comedic timing is about as precise as a broken flux capacitor. She laughed, and this time it was real, filling the chamber with a sound that bent stars and straightened cosmic pathways. Dean found himself standing beside her at the entrance to the council chamber, the same place he'd first met her, minus the whole enemy-conqueror vibe. The doors loomed ahead, etched with alien runes that pulsed like heartbeat monitors. She glanced at him, a grin tugging at the corners of her mouth. Nervous? She asked, her voice a melody with just a hint of starship thruster undercurrent. Dean adjusted his ill-fitting uniform, the one that still smelled faintly of burnt toast and the ozone from their earlier cooking lesson. Nervous? He echoed, lips curling in that irreverent smirk that had gotten him into this mess. Only if you count the time I tried to explain knock-knock jokes to a Vulcan ambassador. He let out a shaky laugh, the kind that threatened to turn into a cosmic hiccup at any moment. She tilted her head, her cobalt filaments catching the starlight like a living halo. You taught me to laugh, she said, and now I'm going to teach them. She gestured to the doors where the council members' shadows waited, stiff and unyielding as neutron stars. Dean's grin broadened, the grin of a man who had discovered his place in the universe. Well, try not to vaporize anyone with your punchlines, he said. Humans are pretty fragile, especially around sarcasm. She rolled her eyes, an expression that somehow translated perfectly across the cultural chasm between them, and pushed open the doors. Inside, the council stared, their faces a study in confusion and suspicion, as if they'd all just tried to decipher a riddle written in quasar code. The Supreme Commander cleared his throat, the sound echoing off the crystalline walls like a malfunctioning karaoke machine. We expected you to return with a prisoner, he said, voice flat as the asteroid belt. Instead, you come with him. His gaze landed on Dean, who gave an exaggerated wave. Hi, everyone. I'm the comedy relief. She stepped forward, her voice steady as the event horizon of a black hole. He is no prisoner, she said, each word carrying the weight of a solar storm. He is my teacher, my friend, my co-conspirator in laughter. She paused, letting that sink in. His jokes taught me more about humanity than any war ever could. Dean's eyebrows shot up. Co-conspirator? That's the best title I've had in years. The council members looked at each other, murmuring like malfunctioning translators. One of them, a particularly pointy-eared diplomat, leaned forward. You wish to bring humor into our alliance. Dean couldn't resist. Hey, if the galaxy's biggest joke was leaving humor out of politics, then yeah, I think we should fix that. He winked at her, and she burst into laughter, the sound echoing like a symphony of shooting stars. The room shifted then, tension dissolving like an ice planet under a dying sun. The Supreme Commander sighed, a sound that rattled the glass panels. If laughter can end wars, he said slowly, then perhaps it can begin peace. Dean straightened, chest puffed with an unfamiliar pride. Yeah, he said, that's the punchline I've been working on. He glanced at her. Ready for your first stand-up routine? She smirked, her cobalt filaments catching the light like fireworks. With you beside me, she said, I think I can handle the hecklers. Together they stepped forward into the uncertain future, a warrior and a comedian, armed with laughter sharp enough to slice through the darkness. And maybe, just maybe, they'd teach the galaxy to laugh at itself before it collapsed under the weight of its own seriousness.